Okay, so now the derailleurs are installed. Now we need to install the chain. Or if you want, before we do that, if you want, I can play with the limiting screws. Sometimes those are really difficult for people to kind of wrap their heads around. So if you want, I can play with the limiting screws while there's no chain. You can see like kind of what they're doing. Don't want to do that or just go straight on the chain. Yeah? Okay. So that's really easy. You just need a Phillips head screwdriver. Pretty universal. And I'll try and turn it so you can kind of see what it's doing. So this is going to be the low end, because we're on the smallest cog, so it'll be easier to pedal. Now I'm gonna unscrew it, and you should see it moving. You see it moving? Yeah. I'm gonna screw it back, and you see it moving. Everybody see it moving? So does that kind of make more sense? And now the high end, you see it not doing anything. It's because I don't have it shifted into the high end position. If I pull it over to the high end position and screw that down, you can see it moving. When we actually go to adjust it when the chain is on, what we're looking for is we want, because the chain's going to move inside here depending on the position of the chain in the rear. So what you're looking for is you want it to be just barely not rubbing, definitely not rubbing, but just barely not rubbing, really close to the inside when you have the chain on the low end up here. And then what's going to end up happening is when you shift it to the high end and you're still in the low end up here, probably you're going to hear it rubbing just a little bit on the outside. And that's fine, because you don't want to ride in that position. It puts too much torque on the chain. You end up with something like this. And I've seen people pop chains riding extreme high and low end. So when you're in the low end up here, you generally want to avoid that highest end, or even the highest two down there. In the middle chain ring, it's okay around any of them. It doesn't really matter. But basically what you're looking for is you want to get it adjusted so the chain's not rubbing, so the chain's not falling off. Pretty much it with the low end. Okay, so chain. This is a chain. This is a multi-speed chain. I think this is good for up to 8 speeds, and what that means is up to 8 in the rear. The difference is gauge and thickness, gauge of the metal and thickness of the whole chain in general. So a single speed chain is going to have the metal is going to be a lot thicker, and the chain in general is going to be a lot thicker. Single speed, you have room to make it a lot stronger, so why not? With these, they need to be a little thinner because there's room. You got to have room for stuff. To install the chain, it's pretty easy. You just run it through all of this stuff. You want it to be on the lowest, or the smallest chain ring and cog as possible. That's for sizing the chain. And then you need to make sure that you get the chain run the right way through the derailleur. So you can see we're going to go through the front at the top. And then there's a little tab there we've got to go through. And that's probably starting to look like something that you recognize, right? So to size a chain, in terms of the length of it, what we're looking for is, again, you want them on the smallest stuff, and you're going to put it where it's going to be in line, and you're going to pull and pull and pull until this is going to stop swinging, and this is going to start swinging. So you see what I mean? At some point that stops swinging and the other arm does. So the whole derailleur stops swinging there, and the wheel arms start swinging. So you kind of see that right about Make sense? So that's what we're looking at. So we're going to take that one out. We just hold that. We're going to get what's called the chain brake. Okay, so a couple things with the chain. You can see there's a female end, or a male end and a female end, and two ends of the same gender on a chain will not go together unless you have a half link. And then I think that connects what, two male ends? The half link connects two male ends. There's also a quick link which will connect okay, to explain it quickly. So a whole link in a chain is actually two sections. There are two sections to a link. And if you pull out, if you want to shorten the chain and you want to attach the links to themselves, you have to pull out a whole link, which is two sections. But sometimes you need to pull out just one section rather than the whole link. And so you'll end up with a female end and a male end, but it's maybe just one section of link too short. So a whole link with two sections would be too long, but the way it is too short. So you can use a half link, which actually will connect. It's like an extended chain section. What a half link, or a quick link, or half link. These names are really confusing. Half link. Yeah. Is one end is a male part and the other end is a female part. So normally a section is male and male, or female and female. A half link is a male on one end and female on the other. So you can lengthen a chain just half a link, rather than a full link, right? So that's kind of, does that make sense? Chains are kind of fun. Okay, so we're going to break the chain. And what's going on?
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a half link, is it alright to just pull it that extra half further? Is that going to hurt anything?
If you have really high-end equipment, then you would go out and you buy a half link. If you have low-end equipment, then
it's not going to make that.
It's not going to make a difference. It will wear and tear. It'll wear and tear just as much as with high-end. But with high-end equipment, you don't want the wear and tear. With low-end equipment, it doesn't really matter. All of this stuff is like Franken equipment. It was like, this bike is made out of parts that we scrapped off of about 5 bikes. So it's like, that's all of the yellow bikes are like that. This derailleur is probably 10 years old. I don't know. It still works, so we're using it. Wear and tear is not really an issue for that. I would say if you don't have a half link or you don't want to buy one, you just have like old used equipment, I would probably go on the long side, I think.
I think that probably better. But at least, like, if you just need to put it on and then get it later, probably a couple days or something.
Right, yeah. I mean, I would go on the long side because the derailleur is springy and it'll keep the tension. It'll just be not far enough, you know. It'll just be a little bit further back than you might want it. If you go short, then you're going to end up with maybe too much tension when you're in the largest gears, and that could wear on the chain itself, that could wear on the bearings. So I would go long if you're dealing with a derailleur that's got a spring. They all do, but yeah, I would go long. So it's not vital. I guess the answer to that question is it's not vital. I would go on the long side, and it'd probably be all right forever. I mean, you might go through the derailleur a little bit faster than you otherwise would. Okay, so the chains are made up, as I said, of links, which are 2 sections, and each section is a male-male and female-female, and that's one link. The female section actually is not one piece, it's actually two pieces. It's essentially two shells that are just connecting to male end. So, and a pin goes through that, and that's how it's held together. The pins are really tight fitting, and when we break the chain with the chain breaker, we're pushing the pin through it. Simple as that. You can see here. Everybody see that? Pin with the two shells. One thing you want to be careful of is you don't want to push the pin all the way through. If that happens, you have to take off another link because you cannot get the pin back in. Like, you just can't do it. Maybe if you were really, really, really good and you had some super tiny clamps and a couple of hours on your hands, you might be able to get the pin back in. So you just want to be careful not to do it. You're going to push it out about that far, and then you're just going to snap it, torque it, and it'll come apart. Just like that. So here's a chain if you want to look at it in detail and play with it, I don't know. Alright, and now we're going to put it together. And we're essentially going to do the same thing, but in reverse. This little guy is called a third hand. Really handy chain tool. Makes it a lot easier. Okay, now, same thing. You're going to torque it to get it back in. It's going to be greasy, so it's going to be hard and annoying. Now, there's two steps to getting a chain back together. First, you have to push the pin through. But once you do that, there's going to be a lot of pressure pushing it together, and it's not going to want to turn. So it's not going to have this flex. So what then you have to do, and before and when you push the pin back in, you're going to put it on this setting of the chain brake, because we have this wall that the chain itself, the links are being pushed against, so the pin moves rather than the chain, right? Once we have the pin back in, we're going to push it in just a little bit farther to one side. Then you're going to turn it around, and you're going to push back on the other side of the pin, but you're going to put it on this setting, right? And what's going to happen there is one side of the chain is going to stay put, but the other side is going to move. So then when you push the pin, the pin is going to move through the one side that's being stopped by the chain stop. But the other side is actually going to separate from the chain and move with the pin. And that'll release the compression, which will then give it flex and allow it to flex freely. And hopefully it'll do it. Sometimes, this is a new chain, so it should do it really clearly. Older chains, sometimes you don't even have to do that. Just because it's old. So, we're going to come here, put it on that one. Sometimes it's going to be awkward because we've got a bunch of stuff going on. You're coming from this way, and like the bike is on this side, so it's kind of. So we'll push it through. Okay, so, you see that bend? That's what I'm talking about. A lot of compression. That makes sense now. So now,